All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody. Sorry, I'm smidge late, like 2 minutes late. I had a bit of a slow morning. Ugh, stayed up a little too late last night, and boyfriend, he got the box set of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so he was also up late at night rewatching Buffy episodes. And I have never seen Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I'm watching the first episode and I'm like, oh my god. I mean, it's not bad. It's just really, really corny. Charming in its own way, but not entirely my thing. But he seems to be really enjoying it, and you know what? I'm happy for him. But don't you even think about it. Don't you think about it. Don't walk all over my notebook. Why? I've been rewriting some, or not rewriting, but writing some free verse poetry yesterday because I was getting into like a brain fog with writer's block. And a little fuzzball here likes to bat her water dish and then find the nearest paper setting she can find and walk all over it. At this point, I think she's doing it on purpose. Anyways, so we're going to continue working with my guy here. I'm realizing now that I missed out on the top of the dry brushing there, so I'm going to figure that out. Also going to work out some of the detailing in here, and I might go back to this guy and attempt to blackwash him because I'm realizing that the shadowy effects are not shadowy enough, even though I really like my little guy. I don't want to accidentally overdo it and make him look worse, but we'll see where we can go from there. So I don't really have much of a plan for this stream, but I do want to watch this video here about a vampire comic book. I really like vampires, so I want to see what it's all about. So I'm going in completely blind here.
This scene right here, man. Beautiful establishing shot of like this tomb here in this room and this one. It's just simple 1 point perspective, but he's doing so much with something that's so simple.
Okay, that's a future and video. Okay.
But today we're going to take a look at Requiem, the Vampire Knight Omnibus, Volume 1.
Oh my god, he looks like Elric. he looks very much like Elric, including the cursed sword. Wow, he looks so much like Elric.
By Pat Mills and Oliver Woodroy. And man, the artwork inside here, this is the good stuff, man. So we open up with this beautiful, beautiful page here. This is kind of what we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at like stuff that looks like Da Vinci over here. So I'm very, very excited for this. And of course, we have these beautiful opening pages here. I think it comes with 3 books in it. It's like 250, 230 pages, or maybe it's like 300 pages. I'm not sure. I know there's a big difference between 70 and 50 pages, but I think we'll just say it's about 300 pages. And man, it doesn't matter because it's in this beautiful big format and it just looks great. I mean, this is the kind of stuff you're going to expect with an artist who works with Pat Mills. Pat Mills somehow manages to work with these amazing artists, these groundbreaking European artists, and their work is absolutely brilliant. And this is,
I will say, European comics are really underrated. Like, I know the American market is stuck on superheroes and American stuff, but European comics are super underrated. And I think I'm just going to take you off this thing so I can get a closer look at you. Yeah, like everybody knows Mobius, but there's also like all sorts of different genres and different artists that most Americans do not know about because we're kind of stuck over here. And it's really weird because a lot of iconic nerd stuff comes from outside the US. Like, of course, I mentioned Elric, but you also got stuff like Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd is super iconic in the comic book sphere. And in fact, have you guys heard Martial Law? You read Martial Law, and that's basically Judge Dredd. It's just he's a super soldier. But yeah, it's it's really weird how European comics just aren't that popular over here, even though they're just as good as the American stuff. I mean, there's crap too, but there's also crap American comics. Like there's crap manga, but it's just so weird how it hasn't had as much of a like foothold over here. I mean, hell, The Adventures of Tintin, it's a Belgian comic, or like quite a few Disney-esque looking comic books come from like Belgium or Spain. So it's like, why the hell is this not more popular?
No different. So we kind of open up in this like snowy world and this great establishing shot clearly showing this character maybe was in a war, could possibly be a Nazi. I don't really know. I haven't actually read the story and I'm going to, but I'm assuming from his name being Heinrich, probably was a Nazi. And seems like he's probably going to go to hell. I think he's being killed by a Soviet here. And then, of course, we are going to get to this portal of hell. It's very exciting because we get to see these beautiful reds, these deep dark reds. And man, get used to these deep dark reds because they are.
I mean, the art
This
is
is what you're
beautiful.
going to get
Yeah.
in the book. And I believe he colored this book himself. And it's so amazing when you see an artist have the ability to ink and color their own work. It's just a beautiful thing when the artist is in complete control and he's not handing it off on anybody else. And man, you can tell by this artwork here. We get these beautiful, big establishing shots with these beautiful drawings and these tiny little panels here. And I imagine he's probably working 11 by
Realizing I
17.
should have
So
painted this before
even
I
if you think, oh
too.
man, that's
Oh
a lot
well.
of real estate to draw on, man, that real estate gets real tight. And we're going to see later on. I mean, he's right here, tons of panels. And we have this amazing, like, Warhammer 40K style of art. Now, this book came out in 2000, I believe, according to the side here. And even for 2000, this stuff feels like it's very, very ahead of its time. We're talking about 26 years ago.
It kind of has more 80s than modern. I'm just looking at it myself. I don't think that style is more modern. I think it's like late 80s, early 90s. So it's more of like a nostalgic style more than anything. I mean, there are plenty of modern artists nowadays who are trying to recapture the old styles, which I very much appreciate because I do like some of the older artwork a lot better, especially for sci-fi books. Like the detail that's in the costuming and the atmosphere, and just all around making everything look as good as possible. It looks so much better than a lot of the, I guess we can call it the Target slop. Yeah, I think that's a good term for a Target slop. Sorry, I'm a little distracted. All right. So, yeah, I mean, I have nothing against older art. I have nothing against new art either. It's just the older stuff does have, it feels like the older stuff has a bit more character to it, whereas a lot of the modern, like, comic book art, it feels, have you heard of the style? It's like called Metro, like Metro slop or something like that. Not Metro like metrosexual, like Metro like Metropolis, like Metropolis slop. It kind of does, and it's like I don't want to be picky because I'm not an artist either. But I'm looking at this stuff. It's like that's. I mean, it's serviceable, it's made to be that way, but it's like okay, all right. So I do like this artwork.
And we're seeing some beautiful stuff. I mean, obviously we can tell when a lot of these European artists, Judge Dredd always plays a role in what they're inspired by because it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal over here. It's definitely a big deal over there, and you can definitely see some love for Judge Dredd in this work. But man, beautiful panels, doing some great things here with like the face head on. I wouldn't do that myself because I feel like it would look like garbage if I did it. I feel like it would look flat, but man, when he does it, it looks so good, especially.
So the Terminator, I'm guessing, is Satan, and he recruits a Nazi to be a Nazi vampire prince lord. This looks like an absolutely wild comic.
With the storytelling. I even like the lettering. You know, the lettering is great too. Beautiful, beautiful work, man. Doing some really creative stuff. We got some very interesting.
What the fuck is that? Evil baby goblin. The Antichrist. Oh my gosh, this. I might have to check this out because this does look really wild.
Characters. You can always expect that in a Pat Mills comic. Like he's always into doing some really crazy off the wall kind of stuff. I mean, if you ever read the stuff that he did with Bisley, man, that stuff is off the wall and crazy, but it's so cool. We have some beautiful anatomy here, man. You see those beautiful wing, I forget what they're called. I think they're the latissimus. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on it. But those muscles that are behind the rib cage, and you got that beautiful deltoid into that bicep and that tricep into that forearm. It's just, man, he's doing some great stuff.
It's like Elric mixed with the crow is what he's looking like an albino crow.
Obliques look great. The abs look great. Doing some really great stuff. I mean, you can see the clavicle there, really just pronounced. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. And I'm assuming that the character here is being reborn, and I guess he's in hell. That's my assumption. Possibly a place worse than hell. Who really knows? But he gets some creepy, freaky characters, man. Really bizarre character choices here. And I mean, I don't know if Pat Mills was writing down on the pages, you know, writing down like make the character look like this, or he's just being creative on his own. Either way, great character designs. Very Giger, very gothic. Kind of reminds me of some Todd McFarlane stuff, man, during the Spawn era. I don't want to give him too much credit, Todd McFarlane, too much credit, because I don't even know if anybody over there was looking at that kind of stuff. Man, I just think Todd McFarlane because I'm a dumb American, I guess. These beautiful 1 point perspective shots that kind of establish things. Later on, we're going to see a page where there's like a tomb, and like it's just such interesting stuff going on here as you're going from this 1 point perspective over to this like top down 2 point perspective. Really, really great stuff. Beautiful stairs.
Okay, am I the only one that's getting like homoerotic vibes between the one vampire and the other one? Because I'm getting some like weird vibes off of them.
Anytime you can see something like that, very interesting like that, stairs going down, like an MC Escher kind of thing. Beautiful, beautiful work. Great panel here where he's kind of opening his mouth as he's about to attack that guy, and then his expression just kind of, you know, he goes from like anger to like fear to being confused. Really, really, really great stuff. Stuff that you don't like. I don't know. I sometimes take for granted when I look at this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, when I'm reading it, I'm really paying attention to the story. I'm not paying attention to the art. That's why a lot of the times I take a little bit of time before I read these comics because I really want to soak in the art first before I get into the whole reading element. But yeah, man, this is a beautiful. I mean, even that ship there. The other thing this really reminds me of is like the Iron Maiden artist. I forget his name. He does a lot. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that kind of stuff. We have this beautiful establishing shot here of the city on fire. We have some like Big Ben, and we have a dick drawn in the middle. And then, of course, we have this beautiful shot here that the only thing that comes to mind, man, is the Inca with fucking Mobius, dude. Anytime I always see a panel where you're looking down at a city and somebody's falling, I instantly go to Mobius. I think he did it twice. He did in Inca, and I think he did in The Long Tomorrow as well. Really, really great stuff. Beautiful, beautiful. Just color and art and drawing. And then I don't know, is our character resurrected? I don't know, man. I got to read the story, and maybe he's dreaming or something. I don't know, but man, kind of reminds me a bit of like of The Crow as well, with like the flashbacks.
Okay, I thought so too.
Big fan of that comic book. One of these days I'm going to cover that, but haven't done it yet.
I will say if you go into The Crow and you are expecting like it is nonstop edginess, I mean the edginess is there, don't get me wrong. Like the story is about the dude going around and killing the crap out of the people who killed the crap out of him and his lady love. That's basically the story. But it's also basically James O'Barr's art therapy because James O'Barr had a pretty crappy life, and he then met his own lady love, and she unfortunately died, and due to the circumstances of it, he kinda had a little spiral, and he used the crow as basically his, art therapy to help not necessarily get over her death, but to more or less just process it. And you really, really, really need to be cognizant of that it is an art piece. It is going to be a little bit on the pretentious side, but it's done in a way where it makes sense, you know? Like, he's been through a lot. He This thing happened to him, and he needs to get the feelings out. Like, he needs to get the feelings out on the page. And I've done that too as a writer myself. There's been a couple of poems that I've written where it was purely just getting the emotions out. And that is what The Crow is. It's beautiful in its own way.
Yeah, man. Just really, really brilliant stuff. Great horse here. I'm always a sucker for somebody who could draw a great horse because they're so difficult to draw with all the muscles and the odd anatomy going on. Man, we got this beautiful two-page thing here with this battle going on and then these panels underneath. I love it when an artist can do that brilliantly. Man, look at that stuff. Oh, man, that panel right there, man. Dark Souls, eat your heart out, dude. Brilliant stuff. Great characters. Very, I don't know, man. Are we in like hell? Or are there like more evil characters than the evil characters that already exist in our story? I don't know, man. Brilliant panel there with this giant monster grabbing that horse. Genius. Wow. Just brilliant. Very King Kong like. I love this panel here where he's raising.
This is gonna be a hot take from me, but I've read horror manga before, and horror manga doesn't quite hit the same, beats as the horror comics we got over here because a lot of manga is designed to be pretty. Like, they're trying to be pretty. And when you have your art, basically your main uh, discipline, where all you have to do is just be pretty, be pretty, be pretty, you miss out on a whole like level of artistry because horror, yes, you can have beautiful artwork in horror, but it's also supposed to horrify you, you know? It's supposed to be disturbing, it's supposed to be kind of gross, and a lot of manga just don't hit the same horror manga just don't hit the same beat because they're still trying to be pretty. And it's like, come on, you gotta get over pretty. You have to embrace the gross. You have to embrace the horror. But yeah, I that's a hot take for me because I've tried. Junji Ito is the big exception because he balances that line of being beautiful and also extremely horrifying and sometimes kind of gross. This one panel that, oh my gosh, it will never leave my mind. Long story short, this kid has like a bunch of pimples on his face and he pins down his sister and then he squeezes his face so all of his acne pores pop open and the acne pus just drips down on her face. It is the grossest thing I've ever seen. But outside of him, it's like a lot of horror manga just doesn't do the same thing as horror comics for me.
A sword. There's quite a great action in here, a lot of great gesture. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. I guess pirates. I guess we have all different kinds of vampire like people. Again, very claustrophobic and tight. A lot of panels on the page. I love what's going on out here, by the way, on the outside of the pages where you have like this, it feels like a map or like a piece of paper that's like old and yet yellowing. Just really interesting stuff going on here. Beautiful, beautiful action shot here. She's kicking him in the face. And it just, wow. This is the kind of stuff when you're an artist, man, you want to draw this kind of stuff. This scene right here, man, beautiful establishing shot of like this tomb here in this room and this one. It's just simple 1 point perspective, but he's doing so much with something that's so simple, and I absolutely adore it. I really, really do. And man, genius, brilliant stuff. I just love these characters. And this guy's looks, I don't know, man. Looks pretty evil if you ask.
666. The artwork is so edgy. What the hell is this? Oh my god. Oh my god. Why is Lobo here?
Man, this guy looks evil too. Everybody in this book looks evil, dude.
I mean, you're in
Everyone.
hell. Hey,
And
no.
of course, we have some scenes of our dude getting it on, I guess. And then again, we come back to this character. I don't know. Are we in a time loop here? I don't know. But have more sex going on in here. So, you know, very much like Faust, but a little less X-rated. I love what he does with his anatomy. It's very unique. I love it when an artist has such a unique style, and you can instantly tell their work right away. And man, that we're not seeing a guy who's drawn for Marvel here, who's hey, you need.
Yeah. There are a couple of there are only I have no really detailed eye for art, but there are a couple of artists where even if I don't completely recognize it, there's certain key things that they do with the way they draw things where I automatically know, oh, it's this guy. But the other day I was at this coffee shop. It was like a coffee shop / bar / bookstore, one of those hippy dippy places. And I was taking a break from writing and looking at what they had in the graphic novel section. And I look up and I see this one graphic novel that's I know that artist. Why do I know this artist? It's so familiar. And then I open it and it's Barry Windsor Smith. And it's oh, that's why. And I'm looking through, it's yep. The way he draws the eyes, the way he draws a woman's face. You could immediately tell. Even though it didn't pop into my brain immediately, I was I know this artist. I've seen this guy's work before.
Draw like Neil Adams or draw like John Byrne.
Oh my god.
Yeah, man, he's doing his own thing, and it really stands out. Brilliant, brilliant piece there. So awesome. Just beautiful. And then you get there's something about vampire comic books. I always feel like vampire comic books are super rad. There's not very many of them, but when you get them, they're just always.
All right, I think he's just
super rad for sure. And yeah, I will say this book does have glossy paper, which I hate, and I've been very open about my hatred of glossy.
Ooh, I love the design of that ship. That's a really cool design. All right, let's see if we can find another video. Oh, where's Space King 5? I'm going to wait to watch that with my boyfriend because he has been asking me over and over again when Space King is coming out, when's the next Space King, and I'm I'm sorry, I don't know. But here's one. Fiction's most underrated, or fiction's most demented world. Yeah, Vampire Hunter D is a very demented world. Let's check it out.
What is the single most terrifying apocalyptic scenario you can think of? A nuclear winter would be pretty bad. Well, how about a global natural disaster or humanity completely enslaved? Well, what if you took all of those, multiplied them by about 100,000, and threw them into an apocalypse burrito, crawling with mutants, lasers, werewolves, and most importantly, high-tech vampires? Welcome, my friends, to the equal parts awful and fascinating world of Vampire Hunter D. It is easily one of the most unique, daunting, and obscenely ambitious series ever written. This almost unhinged genre mashup combining elements of hardcore horror, gothic, western, fantasy, and sci-fi, all overflowing with lore, emotional damage, and enough good looks to last you several reincarnations. But despite being
Yeah, Vampire Hunter D is definitely one of the most beautiful characters I have ever seen in my entire life. That's partially because I am, again, a sucker for vampires. I love vampire stories. I'm trying to get my freaking ass in gear to write my own vampire novel, but it's gonna be more on like the action horror side than like the romantic side that a lot of people expect from vampires these days. I mean, there's going to be some romance in there, but it's not like it is going to be no Twilight. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think Twilight has done like a super damage to vampires. I'm not going to get too in on it because quite frankly, it's old to just shit on Twilight. Yeah, it's cringy and embarrassing, but it's not like the worst thing ever. I've read it myself. It's a fairly okay paranormal romance book. It is an okay paranormal romance book. And hey, if that is your thing, fine, whatever. But as far as the reputation of the vampire, it has done irreparable damage to the vampire, which I do lament on.
One of the best-selling series in the world. Most people only know it for 2 anime films that have long since been done and dusted. So today we're going to try to fix that and walk through what Vampire D actually is, its long publishing history, its weird legacy of adaptations, and finally where everything stands today. So put on your highly impractical hunter hats and let's explore Vampire Hunter D. Hi.
Vampire Hunter D is another one where I'm really surprised that it hasn't made much of a splash here in the States, because apparently it's really big in Europe. But Vampire Hunter D, it seems like it's like the quintessential like supernatural action thriller. So why isn't it more popular over here?
Everyone, my name is Otto and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring the history of series, franchises, and more after their time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a like and subscribe button below. Now, Vampire Hunter D is still ongoing in some ways, but it's about 5 decades in, so I thought it's worth a shot doing. So, Vampire Hunter D is a long-running series of novels written by Hideyuki Kikuchi and illustrated by Yoshitaka Amano, first published in 1983. And it's one of those things.
And if you're wondering, hey, that artwork looks very familiar, he's the same guy who did some of the concept art for the Final Fantasy games.
Things that make you look slightly manic if you try to describe it, because it's just so many things at once. Now, on the surface, it's about, well, duh, a vampire hunter named D. But if you're walking into this expecting the usual trappings of a vampire series, you could not be further off from the mark. Now, a lot of this comes down to the world building, which is beautifully, some might even say aggressively bizarre. There are lasers, there are werewolves, there are vampire space colonies. And this is a post apocalyptic world with layers and layers of world building stacked on top of each other, sometimes literally.
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, humans ruled the world for a long time, and then humans nuked themselves because we're idiots. Then the vampires rose from the ashes, and the vampires ruled for some time, but then they got a little too decadent and greedy, and the Civil War broke out, so their society fell apart. So in the current setting of Vampire Hunter D, the vampires are on decline while humanity is slowly building itself back up again, if I'm remembering that correctly. That's the long and short of it. And it does, and the movies do a good thing of pointing out that it's another franchise that has a very cyclical nature to it, where the humans fuck themselves over, the vampires fuck themselves over, and both of them are just trying really, really hard to just hold on to see another day. So it's also very Warhammer 40k in that aspect.
Each with its own aesthetic, tech level, and usually genre. Kind of feels like someone was 5 days into a bender, stabbed themselves with adrenaline midway through the highest stakes game of table tennis ever played, and was forced right then to invent a fictional setting on the spot. It is maximalist to the extreme, but to its credit, it does somehow make it all work. Now, if that's not enough to make your
It's started back in the 80s, right? So that's pretty par for the course for something that came out in the 80s, just being mega over the top.
head spin, the other half of what makes this series what it is that while it might not quite be grimdark, it cannot be that far off. It will slap you in the face, then spit on you for good measure, which is how
Oh yeah, and D is one of those characters where he has massive daddy issues. Though from what it's more explored in the novels, and from what I've heard from the novels, I've only seen the movies, I haven't read the novels. He has a very good reason to have daddy issues. That my favorite trope of male heroes, like the ones who have daddy issues, and they have a very justified reason of having daddy issues.
unrelentingly terrible this world is. This is a dark, hyper-violent, hyper-sexual labyrinth that makes Berserk look almost friendly by comparison. Terrible things happen to almost every character, regardless of age, often more than once in this meat grinder of a world. Now, I think this blend of genre mashup and the brutality of the world are probably best embodied by the setting itself. And most of Vampire Hunter D takes place in a lovely little region known simply as the Frontier. And when I say lovely, I mean it's an irradiated post-apocalyptic wasteland where what's left of humanity is holding on by its fingernails in small, almost Old West-style towns. The soil can barely sustain life. So if you want to grow crops, well, good luck. Breakfast might literally be a giant mutated chicken egg, assuming you don't get eaten by the chicken first. Life is so relentlessly bleak that even the local school teachers are actively drinking and popping hallucinogens just to get through the day. And that's not even getting into what the radiation has done to biology. Sure, some mutations just turn people into monsters, but others grant superhuman speed or even weirder abilities like manipulating shadows or, in some cases, outright dimensions. Overhead, there are lesser dragons in the sky and giant man-eating birds circling the towns. Though, in classic Frontier fashion, the locals just eat them because apparently they are delicious. When life gives you lemons and all of that. Now, obviously, you are forced to grow up young here because best believe no one is coming to help you. Sure, there are sheriffs, but they're often corrupt. If you can't swing a sword or shoot a laser gun, you are not long for this world. But to be fair, being freed from your earthly coils might arguably be an upgrade over living in one of these isolated, dying towns. Now, you might think to yourself, well, sure, I'll just pack up and leave. But no, you will not. In this world, travel is seen as absolute suicide because although everything so far might seem run-of-the-mill, post-apocalyptic Fallout / Mad Max worlds, we are dealing with something much, much worse here.
This is actually one of the aspects that I think the first Vampire Hunter D movie has gotten a little bit better than Bloodlust. I have gone on the record in my blogs before that I do think that Bloodlust is the superior film. But when it comes to like really depicting just how a post-apocalyptic this world is, I do think that the first film has it down a lot better. I mean, it's not nearly as dark as the books can get, but it does nail that whole, yeah, these living in these towns kind of suck. You're kind of stuck with all these assholes. But at the same time, where are you going to go? if you accidentally wander out into the fields at the wrong time of night or the wrong night, you will get picked off by monsters at best, or you will be forcibly married to the count at worst and forcibly turned into a vampire for his own amusement. So it's like, yeah, you're kind of stuck where you are.
Beneath the surface, you also have this chaotic fever dream fusion of high-tech, sci-fi, and gothic monstrosities all trying to murder you, culminating in a vibe that's unlike anything I've ever read. So sitting under this western-tinged wasteland is a much older layer underneath, the skeletons and remains of a highly advanced sci-fi civilization laced with gothic undertones. So you've got things like people riding cybernetic horses past giant gothic castle ruins guarded by robots, while entire flying towns hang in the sky, protected by sheriffs and deputies fending off sky pirates. It's a setting where basically anything is possible. And somehow all of these mismatched pieces coalesce into one beautiful genre burrito. And nowhere is that burrito more concentrated than what's known as the capital. Quote, a fully automated cyber city, the product of cutting-edge scientific technology. It sits at the center of a system of super speed highways that crisscross all 7 continents. However, a fine dust coats the walls of buildings and minarets. The automated city is populated by humans who can use its machinery, yet see only the tiniest fraction of the benefits it might provide, end quote. Now, all of that raises a lot of questions. What was this place like at its height? And more importantly, who actually built it, if not the humans currently living off its scraps? Because if all of that wasn't enough, let's not forget, this is still a vampire series, which I know I forgot too. So let's take a step back and look at how this nightmare of a world actually started, because it's not just one apocalypse, it's more like 2 or 4. Honestly, I've lost count. But the very first one, at least, was in the year 1999. And humanity did what we always do in sci-fi. We nuked ourselves into oblivion so hard it sent us straight back to the savage, dirt-eating dark age. And lurking in the shadows this whole time, maybe even from the beginning, were the vampires. In humanity's darkest, most disorganized hour, they rose up and rebuilt the world in their image. Now, sure, that might sound awful, but there were a few silver linings. During their reign, the vampires cracked open an era of god-like technology. Basically, sci-fi cranked up to 100 million. Space travel, weather manipulation. There were literally vampire moon colonies, which is a crazy concept. So, wow, that sounds dandy. They brought science, built beautiful cities, dragged humanity back from the brink of extinction. What benevolent overlords.
No, they were not.
Except, no. This was a strict 2-tier system with humanity firmly at the bottom and the vampires making that painfully clear by calling themselves the nobility. All of their splendor existed in direct contrast to their absolute brutality, actively preferring hunting unwilling human victims and keeping humanity basically as second-class livestock in a world designed to be their personal hunting park. They built monolithic castles with Gothic architecture as a deliberate nod to medieval feudalism meant to show off their superiority, and bred genetically engineered monstrosities as guards. This is genuinely a worst case scenario for humanity, a race that is smarter, stronger, and infinitely more powerful than us, grinding humanity into cattle psychologically. But immortality is a heavy curse, and even the greatest empires crumble. And by 4000 AD, the nobility began a rapid decline after literal wars against invading aliens, because sure, why not? Let's have aliens in here too. And this dwindled the vampires' numbers to a fraction of what they'd been. And eventually, humanity saw its opening and revolted, successfully taking the capital and driving the surviving nobles out into the waste. Which brings us to the current era, which is this weird, tense transitional period. The vampires are mostly gone and humans are technically on top. But the irony here is
The key word there being technically.
that humanity in this era is arguably even more cruel and brutal to each other than the vampires ever were, because nothing in this series is morally black and white, and the once godlike vampire aristocracy feels a bit tragic. And what does it say about humanity if they are the dominant race but they are still absolutely terrified of the ghost of the nobility. Now, sure, the vampires in this setting have their classic weaknesses like water and an allergy of being, staked through the heart, but the nobles are still lingering out on the frontier and possessing these terrifying magical abilities, sci-fi weaponry, and, those pet mutants I was talking about earlier, which is why a profession known as the Hunters has risen up to take out these monstrosities. This is not out of the kindness of their hearts, but for that cold, sweet, hard cash. And it's all very Witcher-esque, with different hunters for different type of monster, with none being more skilled and more rare than the vampire hunters. And the absolute best among these lethal specialists is, of course, the quote-unquote hero of our story, the legendary hunter himself, Dee. Dee is basically what happens if you took the most memorable gimmicks of 15 different anime protagonists, threw them in a blender, and topped it off with a ridiculously stylish, some might say totally absurd, wide-brimmed traveler's hat. He's over 10,000 years old, an absurdly, almost unfairly skilled swordsman and fighter, but probably the most defining thing about Dee is his beauty. His movements are described as effortlessly poetic and lighter than the night itself. He is so unnaturally stunning that women swoon at the sight of him, and even other men get sexually aroused just by seeing him, with one character saying directly to him, quote, "You keep looking at me like that and I'll jerk off to you," end quote. So I guess the saying
What?
beauty is pain really
Well, straight to the point.
is true. Now, here's a more elegant quote describing Dee. Quote, "She had lost herself in the beauty of the unmasked youth, with his thick, masculine eyebrows, smooth bridge of a nose, and tightly drawn lips that manifest the iron strength of his will. His eyes harbored sorrow even as they sparkled. That final touch made this crystallized beauty the image of youth incarnate, chiseled as it were by nature itself, perfect and complete," end quote. Now, whether or not his pointy, weird little hat add or detract from this is unclear, but either way, this goes well beyond a 10 out of 10. His beauty is otherworldly and unearthly, and one large reason for that is that Dee is not altogether human. Dee, of course, is a Dhampir, half vampire, half human, which sounds like it should be the best of both worlds.
Oh, it's
Vampire
not.
powers with fewer of their weaknesses, but the reality of this is that you are feared, loathed, and ostracized by both groups, quotes, belonging to neither worlds, sharing the night with the nobles and the day with the humans, accepted by absolutely no one, end quote. But whether or not Dee deserves our sympathy is another question. You get a sense that there are many dark urges and parts of Dee. To his credit, he does try to resist them. Like the good old urge we've all had of wanting to gouge himself on that good old blood Gatorade. And do not, for a single second, mistake Dee for some nice.
Wait, was that supposed to be gorge? Gorge himself on it? Like, why did he say gouge? It's gorge. I don't mean to be like that, but I thought he was going to go straight for, like, oh, he wants to commit suicide, which, I mean, considering his situation, that would be slightly understandable. But it's like, I don't want to be that person, guys. I really don't.
In shining armor. Dee is a cold-blooded mercenary who rarely goes out of his way for charity. In one of the novels, when a woman named Celine loses her entire family and desperately begs Dee for help, his immediate response is not a comforting speech, rather a flat, "Will you hire me?" No money, no service. After all, this is the frontier. So Dee is kind of the very definition of a loner. Except that's not entirely true. He does have one companion, just happens to live on his left hand, which is a whole other weird, symbiotic can of worms. Living inside of Dee's left palm is a sarcastic, chatty, and let's be honest, a bit rude parasite. The left hand serves as Dee's cynical sidekick and occasionally talking to other very confused people on Dee's behalf. But more importantly, it's Dee's lifeline, possessing this bizarre ability to consume elements and literally revive Dee from straight up death, which, as far as powers go, is a pretty nifty one to have. The two have their own relationship, with Dee being this very stoic, quiet, mysterious person, and the hands being more abrasive. So as you can imagine, the two don't exactly get along like a house on fire, although they do have some hilarious interactions and chemistry. Now, I know that sounds really strange, and it definitely is, and leaves a lot of questions. But if you were expecting answers, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because a lot of Dee's backstory is left deliberately unexplained. His hands, how he became what he is, pretty much everything. What this series does hint at repeatedly is who his father might be. Dee is implied, although never outright confirmed, to be the son of the sacred ancestor of the nobility. You know, the big D-Dog Dracula, who effectively created all vampires. And maybe this isn't surprising because
Yeah, the movies explicitly say that he is the son of Dracula. Yeah, there's like the end part of the first movie where they have like a portrait of Dracula, and both the vampire characters look at the portrait, then look at Dee, and they're like, wait a second, are you his son? And then in Bloodlust, Carmilla, I can't remember exactly what she says, but Carmilla almost blatantly says, yeah, you are Dracula's son, and that's part of the reason why I hate you. Because, Mahan does mention that too, that he doesn't say it like, oh yeah, Dracula's your father. He says, oh yeah, your father, he's the one that kind of put Carmilla in the situation she's in the first place. So yeah, she's going to be pretty freaking pissed to see you.
You know, what did you think the D stood for? Now, D throughout the series shows an unsettling familiarity with Dracula's work and experiments, occasionally even quoting him verbatim. But again, a lot of this is left very vague. It's not like shoved down your throat. So there's tons of questions. Is D actively trying to wipe out all the vampires? Is he hunting his own father? And what actually happened to his mother? But instead of answering these questions or having a larger overarching narrative, instead we get these little tantalizing bits of lore that are drip fed to us as we follow D as he wanders from place to place, taking new kind of monster of the week jobs. A classic example of this plays out in the very first book. D wanders into a town and accepts a contract from a young woman named Doris Lang, who's been bitten by the local noble, Count Magnus Lee. And D stays to hunt the vampire down. But do not get attached to anyone. There will be books where you'll meet an entire seemingly lovable cast and you'll think, oh, this is nice. D has finally found some friends. Only for that entire lovable cast to be dead or just outright evil by the end of the book, or the entire town he was in devolving into some Bloodborne-esque nightmare, leaving D right back to where he started, completely and utterly alone. On top of this, there's this unexplained, half-glimpsed quality.
I do really need to read these books because they do seem interesting, and while the movies do give us a good introduction into the series, there is a lot wanting. Especially when it comes to like D as a character. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's very obvious that so much is left for us to figure out
over the whole series that all feels very dreamlike. We're kind of along for the ride as we explore new corners of this strange, fascinating, and let's not forget, deeply brutal world. Even the sense of time is murky. Has this story been going on for hundreds of years, thousands, just a few weeks? And even the author has openly admitted he doesn't actually remember most of his own sprawling mythology. And all gives this very
up there with like Stephen King being like, oh yeah, I don't actually remember writing Cujo. Yeah, he did say that, and it's because, you know, Stephen King being an infamous like coke fiend, like he's gone explicitly to say, yeah, I was addicted to coke back in the day. So yeah,
mythical fever dream logic. And when you do get world building, it's never delivered as some big info dump. Instead, it's just kind of sprinkled naturally in, almost incidentally, through small details about the old nobility civilization, building slowly across years and years and volumes and volumes. A good example is that entire alien war I mentioned with the vampires. Where did those aliens come from? No idea. It's never really addressed. And so you keep reading book after book because you're so curious about D and the rest of the worlds, and suddenly you're on volume 10 without realizing it. Now, that's not to say everything is rosy here, because
I think that kind of setup for this kind of series works. I think having it more Monster of the Week, it works for something like this. because it's like you're not like D is only part of the reason why you read or watch Vampire Hunter D. It's also just exploring the world, and you can't really do that if you're stuck on like a singular story arc or a singular place. So it makes sense for something like this to be more episodic.
There have been a lot of criticisms from none other than the fans over the years. Now, a lot of people will point to a lot of the stories feeling a bit repetitive and samey, especially because, well, let's be honest, D is very overpowered. After all, the guy can literally not die. So D's world is basically post-apocalyptic gothic horror with a body count that would make most GMs weep. And if that puts you in the mood to run something as equally grim and vampire infested at your own table, you are going to need a battle map that actually looks the part. And that's where 2-Minute Tabletop comes in. They create beautifully hand-drawn battle maps, asset packs, and tokens designed to make your games look incredible. Whether you're running your sessions digitally or IRL, 2-Minute Tabletop has thousands of modular maps, dungeon tiles, and tokens ready to drop right into your next adventure. Now, what I really love about them is that it kind of instantly solves the biggest hurdle in TTRPG prep, which is finding clean atmospheric visuals that don't take hours to set up. So you get hand-drawn quality that makes your encounters feel epic. Whether your party is exploring a sprawling fantasy city, a sunken ruin, or the frontier. So if you want your next campaign to look as haunted as it feels, check out the link in the description and go build a world that's as worth being afraid of as the one in Vampire Hunter D. So how does something this surreal, dystopian, and beautiful even come about? Well, it comes down to one guy who was absolutely on fire in the early 80s, Kikuchi. He was pumping out multiple iconic genre-defining dark fantasy series at a breakneck speed, releasing classics like Demon City Shinjuku, which is its own fascinating series about a demonic post-apocalyptic Tokyo wasteland, which, what is it with this guy and post-apocalyptic settings? Now, around the same time, he also came out with the very first Vampire Hunter D novel. Now, in case it was not supremely obvious, Kikuchi's mind was a melting pot of very unique influences. He was deeply inspired by Western horror, specifically citing Hammer Films' Dracula in 1958 as a gateway drug into the genre, being blown away by the unearthly elegance of Christopher Lee's legendary portrayal of Dracula. But what really drove him to write about vampires was actually a deep philosophical fascination with what they represented. Quote, "What I find interesting about vampires is that they're kind of a Western nobility that Japan doesn't have in its history. They're immortal, but they show that immortality isn't completely a good thing. They have to live forever with all kinds of doubts and pain. I thought that when put in that situation, the ageless and immortal superhumans might seem even unhappier than ordinary human beings." End quote. Now, all of that is a very compelling premise, but it's likely that the series would have stayed very niche if not for the incredible illustrations that perfectly capture the series' otherworldly quality, courtesy of Yoshitaka Amano. Now, if you're into video games and were born before the year 2000, you've very likely seen his work before, because if the art for D looks like it could double as art for a JRPG, well, ding, 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 you win your very own Vampire Hunter hat, because Amano was the visual architect behind the early Final Fantasy games. And if you look at his work on Vampire Hunter D, it does very much feel like the brooding gothic cousin. Now, Kikuchi was actually incredibly anxious about how D would look like, because after all, how do you even draw something with such obscene beauty? Now, luckily, Amano was seemingly born for this, and I've got to say, flawlessly captured it. It was a home run with this haunting, wispy, romantic work. And if you kind of got Elric of Melniboné vibes, well, you would not be far off the mark, because Amano was actually one of Michael Moorcock's favorite artists who worked on the Elric series, and it's very likely that some of those Elricisms found their way into the design of D. Now, this legendary
It all comes back to Elric. Oh my gosh, it all comes back to Elric. Yeah, it's so weird how Elric. Again, it's weird how Elric isn't more popular, because it's like his influence is everywhere. Why aren't more people? And apparently there was going to be an Elric of Melniboné series, but it got canceled because, get this, it would have been too close to The Witcher. And it's like, it's kind of the other way around. Yeah, go watch Razorfist's video on the comparison of Elric and the Witcher series, because at first I thought I was looking at it like, okay, Razorfist, you're just being a butthurt fan. Like, sure, they both have white hair and they got both swordsmen, but come on, it cannot just be plagiarism. And then I watched the whole video and it's like, holy shit, did Tarkovsky invent anything new for The Witcher? It's very bizarre.
Partnership between Kikuchi and Amano has stood the test of time for over 4 decades, keeping the series in continuous production and helping the novels sell more than 17 million worldwide. Speaking of, you might find yourself looking at the sheer volume of releases and feeling a massive wave of existential dread. There are over 40 books, which is
And not all of them are translated to English.
all the more impressive when you realize that Kikuchi is famous for writing almost every single one entirely by hand. But there is no need to panic because, like we talked about, this series is incredibly episodic. Instead of one massive, heavily serialized saga where you have to remember verbatim what happened in some random chapter from 15 years ago, D is built on the classic monster of the week pulp structure like we talked about. You can pick up almost any book in the series and jump right in anywhere. If you're an English speaker and like saving money, which I hope you do, the easiest and most cost-effective way to do this is through the Dark Horse Omnibus editions. It packages 3 complete novels together. Now, speaking of the English translations, it's kind of incredible we got these at all. And the way it came about was very interesting. So the official Vampire Hunter D translator, Kevin Leahy, apparently before that happened, went to an event in Japan and asked Kikuchi himself politely, point blank, if there were any plans to translate the series into English. And everyone at the event reportedly lost it and was like, oh my God, what is a foreigner even doing here? Before replying politely that no, there was not. But it seems that that question got Kikuchi thinking, because not long after, Leahy was brought on board. Now, for a series that is as globally recognized as one of the most popular vampire stories of all time, you can probably guess that the main novels are just the very tip of this vampire iceberg. Over the last 4 decades, the Vampire Hunter D universe has expanded into an absolute maze of spin-offs, bringing us to the Noble Greylancer, released in 2013. It's a series that drops us right into the height of the 3,000 years war between the vampire nobility and the invading outer space beings, you know, those aliens, following Greylancer, a pure-blooded vampire warrior. Now, if you're a massive nerd for the world building of the series, Greylancer is a goldmine, diving deep into the high-tech spacefaring military might of the vampire peak era, and really helps you understand the world's background and the immense power that the nobles once possessed. There's even a direct sequel, Blood of a Hero. Now, if you want a spinoff that stays a bit closer to the
All right, so we're getting about to the 1 hour mark, but big video, very big video. I can't believe we went through that. Wait. Yeah, I remember this one. Yeah, the Summer Hikaru died. That's basically if Junji Ito wrote a boys love manga. That's how it was described to me at first. And yeah, it is very creepy. I have read it. And, well, the first 4 volumes I've read. And it is very creepy. It's very well done, and the boys' love is actually not super prominent in there. If that's what's keeping you from checking it out, the boys' love aspect is actually not very minuscule, very minuscule. But I believe I did a fairly okay job, like detailing things up. I brushed off the silvering there, add in some gold. And yeah, I think this is another one where I'm going to go back and forth on whether or not I want to do the black wash. Oh yeah, and even need his little pockets brown. But anyways, I'm going to call it quits here. Let me know if you guys want me to react to any specific content, or if you want me to do something else for these streams instead of painting. I'm always open for ideas because I'm trying to figure out how to do this streaming thing right. So yeah, like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all next Sunday. Bye. All right. Do. And